It's July 7th, 2010. We're sitting here interviewing Ruth Salinger here in Rama Aviv. I'm Elli Wohlgelernter. So Ruth, first begin with your grandparents and tell me their background and where you're coming from.
Yes, my grandparents came from Poland, from Warsaw.
Which side?
On my mother's side, and when they arrived here, they lived in Hebron, and they were Hasidei Gur, and Hebron was then a stronghold of Hasidei Gur, and they arrived in 1925. By then, my uncle, my mother's brother, was already here. He came in 1922. And they lived there. My mother was a young woman, a young teenager, and she had already moved to Tel Aviv. She didn't live there, but she went there to be married in 1928 to my father, of course, and they were the last couple to be married there before the 1929 massacre, yes. And then they moved to Jerusalem as refugees, and later on they all moved to Tel Aviv.
Where did your father's family come from?
Also from Warsaw, and also Hasidei Gur. But he was the youngest of 9 children, and by the time he came here, 1925 also, his father had already died, and his mother came here. And she lived with us, and he started all kind of jobs, and then he built a kind of a workshop for, he was a fitter and turner, and they lived here, and we were, 4 children were born. I was the eldest. And that's, and we lived we lived in the center of Tel Aviv, which was then, there were no roads or anything. You reached the north of Tel Aviv through the sand dunes. And
let me just ask you about what happened to the family, the grandparents in Hebron in 1929.
Yeah, well, they became refugees. They were saved by the landlord. My uncle had an inn there for the yeshiva students, and they were saved by the landlord. And I want to mention here that the Arabs that went wild there were not the locals, really, not Hebron citizens, but the villages around Hebron. They all came from the hills into Hebron.
What was the story that they told you, how they survived with the Arab landlord?
They survived. The landlord was afraid that they will damage the property before being killed. So he told them that he'll look after them, and they hid inside until the whole thing was over. And then I think the Sochnut Yehudit took the refugees to Jerusalem, and they lived in Jerusalem for a while, and then they came all of them came to Tel Aviv.
You were born when?
1929.
What date?
19th of May.
Okay, tell me about childhood in Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv was actually a bubble of Jewish life, secular Jewish life, not religious. And we didn't know, in Jerusalem, for example, children that grew up in Jerusalem could hear the muezzins, they could hear the bells of the Christian churches. There was no such thing in Tel Aviv. We didn't have churches, we didn't have, Yaffo had mosques, but we didn't hear them. They were far away. And it turned out to be a kind of a bubble, isolated. And we loved it. We had a lovely time here. And
What was it like in the 30s in Tel Aviv? So
Tel Aviv was a cultural center. The newcomers in the 30s were the German Jews, and they brought with them money and culture and music and paintings, and they loved it. They brought actually little Germany to Tel Aviv, and that was quite fun. Although my parents were not from Germany, they were from Poland, but that's how it was then. And there were concerts. In 1940 already, what's his name, the conductor, Leonard Bernstein, came and gave concerts, also for the youth. I remember going to concerts that he conducted. And of course, 1936, the Philharmonic was, Huberman was here, and he brought and most of the players in the Philharmonic were German Jews. They were from Berlin. They were just kicked out from there. And that was really a cultural center. It was really nice. But then the war came.
as growing up, these German Jews who were coming to Tel Aviv, were you hearing stories about what was happening in Germany?
At first, yes, we heard about the Kristallnacht, of course, and all the beginning of, but the stories about the concentration camps came only later. It took time before things, and nobody believed it at first because it was really unbelievable. And that's you know, and the British were, there were lots of complaints against the British, and the British were in many cases against the Jews for the Arabs, and that's how it was.
How did you relate to the British mandate, to the British governing the country?
You know, the pre-Haganah movement was the Gadna. And I joined the Gadna when I was already 15. And we did all sorts of little things, sticking up all sorts of posters around. At 15, we were not really active. The older ones were more active than. And I remember the conflicts between the Haganah and the Etzel and the Lehi. There were conflicts that were quite. My dad didn't like the Etzel and the Lehi. He liked the Haganah. But by the age of 15, he already was very ill, and he died at the age of 51, because of heart problems. And not much longer after that, the War of Independence started.
How would you describe the conflict between the Etzel, Haganah, and the Stern Gang?
Well, it depends on which side you were. I was with the Haganah. Gadna was the pre-course of the Haganah, and it was part of high school. I remember going out to training camps using sticks and clubs as defense, and I was only 15, and it's 16, and that's how it was then.
Did you have friends who were more partisan towards the Etzel and the Stern Gang in high school?
We didn't discuss it very much. It was all rather secret, quite secret. You know, you went to these camps, and we didn't discuss much. My class. And that's how it was.
And how did it play out on the street? What did you see as how things were happening between the groups on the streets of Tel Aviv?
Yes, as it happened, I lived then, I mean, my family and I in the south of Tel Aviv, which is Florentine. And the head of the Lehi was killed there by the British opposite our house. And we still remember, my sister and I still remember the gatherings in front of his house when the British came and they found him on a flat on the roof and killed him, and people gathered downstairs and they said, yes, Yair was killed. I remember it.
That's quite a memory. That's quite
Yes.
I mean, that was a major event in
It was a major event, yes. Although lots of people were against them, they were really extreme. And very often people like us, like my dad, were against their actions. For example, the hanging of the two sergeants. My dad couldn't get over it because pleads came from England, pleas to let them go, and Begin didn't budge. He said yes, he wanted the prisoners in Akko to be released for these two pure sergeants, 18-year-olds. And I remember it, yes.
Everyone took sides in those days.
Yes, some people didn't like to, as it is today, really, you take sides, depends how extreme you are and where you stand and your opinions and all this. And
Okay. After high school? What did you do after high school?
As soon as I finished high school, I went the war broke out. It was the day after the decision at the United Nations that the voting for the creation of the state. The day after that, the real war started. The buses were bombed. On the way, the one was on the way to Jerusalem, I think, and I'm not sure. And half a year later, the state was established. Yeah, but when I went to the army, it was a little late, end of 48 and beginning of 49. At first I was at Harel, the brigade Harel, 5th. I was in the radio section.
We'll get to that.
Communication.
1 second, but back up a little. Leading into it, tell me what it was like here from the day after the partition vote in November 29th of 47. What was happening here in Tel Aviv specifically that you experienced?
Yes, the people, for me, my experience, my dad had just died. And I didn't go to the street, but in the streets they were dancing and singing and big simcha. A Jewish state, I mean, it's history. And then after that, people started going into, but the army at first was in such a disorder. It was amateurish. People went in and out, didn't know where to go. The organization of the whole thing, defense, it was a defensive war, was lacking a lot at first. It took time before. I spent the first few months in the army in blue shorts. Yeah, it's.
Was it because of a lot of the people who were being drafted into the army were Holocaust survivors who? Was that part of the problem?
No. At first we were just those that were born here. The Holocaust survivors came in with time. Some of them were drawn into the army straight after coming into which was a little bit unfair. Some of them didn't speak Hebrew to hear, what the commander said. And that's how it was. So
what did you do exactly? Your tough kid, your position in the.
At first, I joined the Harel, and I was in in the main office of Hativat Ha'el. And I was went into communication. At first we talked into the radio, and only after that, a little while after that, we did Morse code.
Talking into the radio between units, talking between units?
Units and places. We were given orders to whom to talk. Like to another station, another position. You know, that went right through. Later on, in 1949, when Eilat was taken, January 1949, and we went down. That was the fifth, the Harel, the fifth Gdud there, to man stations between Sdom and Eilat. And the highest point was a place called Videographer. Today there is a kibbutz there called Grofit. and we were there, we put a very tall antenna, and we communicated with Tel Aviv and Eilat. Eilat was really not really Eilat. It was nothing. It was a stretch of a beach. It was called Rashash. There was one miserable little building there. That's all, which was. And when it was taken, we were not there yet. We came in to change guards. The whole story with the flag was there. You know, when they took the place, I think Golani was there. There was no flag to put on to show that it's ours. So they took a piece of a white sheet, and blue ink. There is a big statue there now, you know, remind you of this thing, and put it up. They drew the flag. It's not difficult to draw the Israeli flag. It's 2 stripes and a Magen David in the middle, and they put it up. And when we came down end of March to change.
Of 49.
49, and we were divided. There were about half a dozen positions between Eilat and Sdom to guard the Jordanian border. And we had communication, the radio. The radios then were very big, they were size. And the interesting thing that instructions on the radio were in Russian. And the story behind it was that these radios were made in Canada for Russia. And the Mossad intervened, and it changed directions to us. And that's how we got. None of us could read Russian, but we were told what each button was, and we communicated.
What kind of communications? Were you telling where positions were, what you were seeing, where?
Yes. And we communicated with the other positions and told them what went on. From time to time we toured the place, in jeeps. And we came back and we told them what we saw, and that's and there were some very nice moments, even the fact that a lot of the at first were killed in off hours when we did not talk as army should. Army. We looked. All of us that manned our position were fans of classical music. So we looked for other stations, and we found classical music, and on full volume, the music just rolled over the hills. It was a desert. There was nothing. and it was a lovely experience.
Where was the music? What station was it coming from?
The one station came from Cyprus, I think, and the other came from somewhere in southern Europe, I don't know. We found concerts. The first concert we found was the Violin Concerto of Lalo, and this was fantastic. That was the nicer moments of the place.
Tell me about the scary moments.
We didn't have much in this particular stretch because the Jordanian border was fairly quiet. There were Bedouins, and the Bedouins didn't, they didn't really know where to go, who was where. So we communicated with them, those that spoke Arabic to them. But it was fairly comparatively quiet border. The border that was not that quiet was up north, and Eilat was a lovely stretch of beach.
And when you go down there today, what do you feel and see when you go there?
Oh, well, you cannot see. I mean, not a scratch of memory there because it was so empty then. There was one, as I said, one little building which was apparently a police station, that manned the area against marauders or whatever. The view there was fantastic. The rocks, and we did enjoy this. And that's where, that's what it was.
Where were you stationed before Eilat?
Well, before Eilat, I was at Harel, and I was stationed. Harel was, before I joined in, responsible for the way Tel Aviv Jerusalem. And when the convoys for Jerusalem were, I was in Tel Aviv, in Tzrifin actually. Tzrifin was a British camp, really, and we actually conquered it by force, our groups. And that's and then I was stationed in Abu Ghosh. Abu Ghosh, when the villages, the Arab villages south of Jerusalem were taken, at that stage I've already met Rafi, and we were in the same group, and he took part in the taken. I wouldn't even call it conquer. I mean, there was nothing really to conquer. It was just taken.
What month is this?
That was end of 48. And I was stationed in Abu Ghosh. Now, Abu Ghosh has two monasteries there. At the bottom you have the men, and the nuns were on the top, and we were sitting at the nuns' monastery. And they were lovely, they were very nice. They behaved beautifully toward us. And the school, there's a school there, and we took the school. And from the school we also talked, communicated by radio. It was the radio all along. By then it was a Morse code. And when we talked on the radio, before the Morse period, occasionally the Arab stations used to intervene and call us. This in Arabic it's "Uskuti bint al-kalb," shut up, bitch, more or less. And when we didn't reply, we didn't say anything. We just listened, and yes, and that was this. And after that, I was sitting there for a little while, And I was going to tell you also about the people that came from overseas to help us. In our company, when we were sitting in Videographer, we received 2 Canadian brothers, lovely people that came specially to help us. They didn't understand much Hebrew, so they had this kind of difficulty. And when I was in Abu Ghosh, there were also other people that came. The 2 girls came from Belgium, French speaking, and we befriended them. And after that, they decided, we heard that Eilat was taken. It was not Eilat then, it was Rashash. A couple of months later, we went there to change guards, kind of thing.
So how long were you in Abu Ghosh?
Couple of months.
When you say the nuns there were very nice, they've just been conquered by Israelis. Why were they being nice?
I don't really know why, but they were nice people.
Did the village feel occupied?
At first, yes. But this was apparently the only Arab village. It's half Arab, half Christian. The only Arab village that was with us. All the others were against us. They were the only ones that were with us, and they really helped us in many ways.
Like?
Well, give us food, talking to us and befriended us. That was the only village that did that. And the villages south of Jerusalem, like one of them was Beit Jalla, Beit Jalla was Christian, it wasn't Muslim. Rafi took part in it. I was sitting in Abu Ghosh and he took part in this, call it conquest. And they walked with a walkie-talkie to us. And at one stage he became quiet. And then we said between us, well, that's Rafi gone. And then after the whole thing, he came back there was a special bus, he came back. He walked in unharmed, and we asked him, what happened to you? He showed us the walkie-talkie. The antenna went about 10 centimeters from his head. A bullet took the antenna. That's why he couldn't communicate with us. That was one of the, we were, well, half amused, half, sat there in awe. Lucky. That was.
Now, when you broke off communication, you said,
yes.
We said to each other, well, Rafi's gone.
Yes.
Was it an attitude of people are dying all over the place, another one's fallen, but it was not?
No, it was with great sorrow. It was not. I'm telling it now as a thing, but at the time, it was with great sorrow. There were quite a few people killed there. It was not much later after Latrun, and Latrun was. I wasn't at Latrun, but Latrun was a terrible battle, and people were killed there. I had a brother-in-law who was there. Well, he later became a brother-in-law. His unit prepared graves at Kiryat Anavim cemetery in case they were killed. They prepared their own graves for themselves in case they were killed. Latrun was a very bad battle.
I imagine everyone knew someone who had been killed. because the numbers were so great. 6,000 Israelis were killed.
Yes.
Did you ever feel hopeless?
I don't think so, but at this point, I must tell you that this generation, I was born into this generation, I don't think there ever was or there ever will be anything like it. There was a sense of a mission, a sense of we have a task to fulfill. That was where I was, yes. And if you think that it was not much after the war, not terribly long after the war, Europe was in chaos. People were coming in desperate, and we were here. There was a sense of preparing the place for them. Not that there was a great thing that we can do, but we did prepare, especially in the kibbutzim. Kibbutzim were heroic in many of them. And the zeitgeist, the spirit of this era, you could not compare it to anything, to anybody. It was something so special that.
And you were aware as it was going on that it was special.
Yes, I was part of it.
And aware that what you were doing was special.
Yes.
When you say that you were helping prepare the country for these immigrants from Europe, but you were also fighting for your life.
Yes, of course, it was a defensive war. If you think that when the day after the decision at the United Nations took place, 5 Arab countries attacked the small Jewish population here, and we were sparse. We were in many places. And there was at first a sense of, I wouldn't say chaos, but it was the urgency of it. We have to, and we knew that judging by what the Arabs said then and what they shouted, if we were to give in, we were all gone. We all stood with the back to the sea. And that gave us kind of extra energy, I guess. I don't know. I cannot put it exactly where it was. But the general spirit was both defense, very much so. In Tel Aviv, they were preparing in an invasion from Egypt. Egypt came very near Tel Aviv, not far. Nitzanim, kibbutz Nitzanim fell, Kfar Darom fell, so many. And it was bad news after bad news. So there was a feeling that you just have to defend yourself, otherwise you're gone.
Did you also have the feeling, while you were feeling that you weren't going to win? The feeling of doom, that you have to defend yourself to the last, but you might actually lose? And
you know, that didn't enter our minds. That didn't. We just stood there. Look what happened in Jerusalem. Jerusalem was on siege, you know. And by then, the convoys to Jerusalem were a big thing. You could see it until today. The burnt cars. That's all Harel. the thing, and there were, you know. There was a kind of comradeship, I would call it, and it's, I think, here it, and
customer to change the
Light.
כן, תפסיק את זה עכשיו.
Experienced. Well, good. That's what I'm digging. That's exactly what
I did archaeology, I dug in Bet Shan.
Oh, nice. By the way,
But that was
how is
nothing
your
to-
English so good?
I lived in Rhodesia.
Oh, that's right. She told me, right. From what age?
Let's go. Okay.
When I got there, I want to go back to where we were.
After army, it was
We're not there yet.
22.
Fine.
Running. Okay.
Running. Okay, I want to ask you a question. Were there not people, were there not people who were, when the 5 Arab countries announced that they were attacking the new state,
They didn't announce, it just came.
they just came. Were there not people pessimistic to walk around saying, we're doomed, we're dead?
There were, and there were people that escaped. They went overseas. Quite a few. They got cold feet and just ran out.
And how did those who stayed behind look at those who ran out?
Like traitors. Yes, they did. It took a long time to become, to have a normal attitude towards that. You know, being afraid is normal. It's absolutely normal. It's it's human.
I want to go back a little bit to the 30s. As the 30s are happening, you're a child, you're growing up, when did you start to feel that you might have a country, you might have to fight for a country, that a war was coming? When did you start to sense that?
Well, from, I would say, nursery school. I'll tell you why.
Nursery school.
From nursery school. We didn't have a country, but there was a program, educational program in the schools. Who did it? It was the Jewish Agency. The Jewish Agency had a special department, and they were the ones that cooked up the feeling that we are here for a purpose. And it was not religious, it was secular. There was, as I said, later on it was the sense of a mission, but at first all the songs, actually the background were, lots of them were Russians. The songs were Russians. The kibbutzim were mainly Russian. There was a feeling from the start that we are here for a purpose, and not on the religious side, as I said. And it's because it was a feeling that anti-Semitism was going strong, and that was the feeling. But the country here was. People came here from the 17th century on the religious ground, that's true, but still there was a drawing feeling towards establishing a point where Jews could feel safe, well, not safe, but happy, I would say. Yeah.
Why not safe?
Because, you know, right through the conflict with the Arabs were, from the beginning, 200 years. And people saw this. People saw that it's not safe to go there, it's not safe to go here, and it was conflict all the way with the original population of this place. You know?
You remember hearing stories as a little child about what happened in Hebron in 29?
Yes, the stories came. I mean, not as young as when it happened, but in mid-1930s, I would say, people knew. Especially in my family, I knew my grandparents and my uncle. And my uncle had 4 children, and they all came here, and they told us.
And they all talked about the ones who were killed, that they all were their neighbors, that they all knew.
Yes, there were 60 people killed. At first, the story went that there were hundreds, but no, that wasn't true. And that it was not safe to go back to Hebron. And in Hebron, they had properties.
Did your grandparents mourn for those who were killed?
Well, I don't remember that.
Okay.
That I don't remember.
When you say you were singing the songs, you sang Russian songs as a child?
No, not in Russian. They were all translated to Hebrew. All of them. They were, the theater Habima. The main players there, the main actors, were of Russian descent. Hannah Robina, all the rest of them. And they were busy translating. Not only they, others also. That was the beginning of so.
You talked about the Sochnut, the Jewish agency, instilling in you a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
How did they define that purpose?
It was on a nationalistic level, yes. To make the Jews suffered everywhere. There were pogroms everywhere, and we have to prepare a place. And also, what came into it was that in many places, countries such as even the United States refused entry.
Did you have a sense that you were going to have a state someday, or was it just going to be a place that Jews could come to?
Not sure. Yes, the purpose was a state. Yes, and also I must tell you the story of the Kindertransport. That they were mid-1930s. There were people at the Jewish agency that worked. They could sense that something terrible is happening. And they organized these trains with children only from Europe to England. And in England, there were Jewish families that adopted, well, not really adopted. They gave them, place and all this. And my husband was one of them. And well, many years later, I heard his stories. And his story was that his family, after the Kristallnacht, he was born in Hamburg. After the Kristallnacht, there was panic. The Jews started panicking. They should have panicked before, but they didn't. And then families put their children on this train. Well, my husband went on a ship from Hamburg Harbor to London. And in London, he actually had an uncle who was also a refugee from Germany a couple of years earlier. That was... and a family whom I met much later, when we were married already, by the name of Spector, they had children that left home and they took him in. And he told me how it felt to be, well, loved in a way by strangers. And when we finish this interview, I'll show you something, a DVD I have here, published by, I think, the Holocaust Museum in Washington. I should have prepared it. About these children, and the film is called loved by strangers. It was quite later on I met two other friends who were on these trains, two girls, they were twins. And they also told me that, and these two girls arrived in England, and the people that kind of adopted them were the Quakers. The Quakers volunteered to take in some of these children. It was fantastic, I think. And then what happened with Rafi was that he left in 1938. As soon as after the Kristallnacht, they put him on this mission to England, and his family packed up everything and reached Sweden, southern Sweden, Malmö, and they had quite a few Jews from Germany arrived in Malmö waiting as a stepping stone to other places. Some people from there went to the States, some went to Canada, I guess, and Rafi and his family, but Rafi was already in London. They wanted to come here, but he had an uncle. I'll tell him about him later on. He had an uncle in Sweden who paid for the visa to here. So they took a boat from Malmö to London, collected him, and brought him and came here, he and his sister. His two brothers came 3 years earlier by the youth aliyah and were in Kiryat Anavim. The kibbutzim absorbed a lot of the problem people. And here they all united, and that happened a couple of months before the war started, 1939. And that was a story that you can. Well, he would know, and he died 3 years ago, but he never forgot this journey. A lot because the German customs needled them. But one of them told he was only 10 years old, 11. He told him, give me the golden watch that your father gave you, and he didn't have a watch at all. It was just a needling kind of, because they were all Jewish children. And that's...
I didn't ask you, tell me what your day was like on May 14th, 1948.
May 14th, 1948. Well, I was at home. My dad had just died, and we were just organizing things, and I was at home. I didn't go to the street.
But everyone knew that the British were leaving. The state was going to be declared.
Yes. Well.
Where were you Friday afternoon?
No, we were all at home because of this. But lots of when the state was declared, the next day, I was in front of the building with my sister where it was declared. It was the old Tel Aviv Museum on Straat Rothschild. There, the state was declared with all the people that were sitting there. And it was a sense of, I don't know, happiness, I would say. Although everybody knew that trouble will be starting then. The communications then were not as it is today. You have to book a call, telephone call. You had to, there were no telephones everywhere. You have to look for a telephone. It's not like today that you can. That was more difficult, yes.
In what sense?
In a sense of communication. So we didn't know I was on the way to Jerusalem and south. I didn't know much about what was going in the Galil. You know, it was the communications were harder. You know.
When you were working, how long were you working in Harel? Where you were first? So you said you were speaking Hebrew on the radio,
on
and
the
then
radio.
you went to Morse code.
Yeah.
How long a period till when were you doing talking and then switching?
Not very long. Not very long. Talking was dangerous in a sense that it lacked security. But in order to pass on to Morse code, we had to go through courses. We had to learn it. And that was time consuming, and in many ways there was no time. There was attack there, and then you were in the middle of the course. It was in between actions. The course that I did in Morse was in Tzrifin, in Sarafand. And
you were a good student?
No. Well, yes. And afterwards we used to privately also communicate by Morse code. It was easier on the radio. There were not telephones around. There were, but very scarce. And we used to communicate later on. Until today I can communicate by Morse code. I remember it all.
What was your day like when you were working in the communications in Abu Ghosh, for example? What was a day like, morning till night?
It was
What did you do?
very haphazard. It wasn't really organized. If a radio stopped working, so we were looking for someone to fix it, and it was up to us. Today the army is more organized, and if anything is going wrong, and you have people that fix it. It wasn't like that then. It was very, in a way, amateurish.
What was your day like, though?
It wasn't day and night. There were fixed times where we could communicate with other places.
Who decided when?
I think we listened to signs. When the others came in, we just switched it on. Especially when the villages south of Jerusalem were taken. We were in and out of the wavelengths. You know, it wasn't really organized. As I said, it then started an army. We need uniform. There's no uniform. Slowly they came in. The first batches came very often from the States. And then there were Yiddish messages inside. That was funny, very funny. Amatone von America. It was inside some of them, and some of them really didn't fit our way of clothing. It was different.
But in other words, you didn't sit in a room all day by the radio listening?
No.
So what did you do all day? Where did you sleep? Where did you eat?
We slept in some places on the floor. Just put things on the floor, and eating was another. We just grabbed from a lot of places, and the nuns were very good about it. They were very nice.
How many women were in your group?
The radio announcers were mainly women, and I'll tell you why. Because a woman's voice was better carried on the wavelength. A man's voice more integrated into the disturbances of the electrical disturbances on this. Ravi was the only man he had a special voice that manned some of the time. But they preferred women, and at that time also women were not allowed to take part in more daring actions because the Arabs were after the women. You know, and that's what else?
Did you ever pick up a gun?
Yes.
Tell me.
I didn't use it very much because I was mostly on the. I was trained, but I didn't use it very much. I was only on the radio.
What kind of a gun?
A Stand gun. And it was. There was also a revolver, but I can't remember the name.
How long was the training to learn a Stern gun?
It wasn't long. On and off. It wasn't an organized training. It was a kind of on and off, amateurish. The same story with the Davidka. You know the story of Davidka. Also, it made a lot of noise, and you can just about watch it go. It's the same. It was the same kind of character of actions. And
you had a commander?
Yes, one of them was Yitzhak Rabin.
I'm sorry?
Yitzhak Rabin was one of them.
Yes, tell me about
He was the. I didn't know him. Well, I knew him. He didn't know me. I was down here, and he was the top. He was the commander of Israel at that stage, and there was also Igal. No? The other one,
Alon?
Alon, yeah, and Moshe Dayan, of course. Well, he was crazy, Moshe Dayan.
In what sense?
He did things. He used to leave things in midway and go for a party meeting. You know, there were party meetings in the middle of actions, and he was a little wild. Yes, he was a kind of a naughty boy.
How much direct contact did you have with these people?
No, I didn't have. I knew him. I knew all of them, but I didn't know. They didn't know me, of course.
But they would come to address you as they were addressing the whole.
Yes. One of the times, for example, when we were in Videographer, the Chiz Patron came to us, and their stage was the bus, the lorry. That was the stage, and I remember I was sitting there.
Who was on that lorry? Standing on that lorry?
The Chiz Patron. They were singing. They came to entertain us. And once, Videographer is it's a very, very flat one. It can be a landing strip for small aeroplanes. And one day Ben Gurion came to visit us, and that was a simcha. That was, but he just came, asked questions, and flew off. That was not anything. But the Chiz Patron, I remember.
Did you have to report to your commander, your immediate commander? She had to know where you were, or he?
Wait.
When you were in let's say in
Videography?
No, I was thinking
In Abu Ghosh?
Abu Ghosh.
You know, I don't remember this.
Okay.
People came in and out. One day, 2 girls came. They were from Belgium. And the commander brought them and said, all right, you sit here with the radio and the other girls. There was not, as it is in an army today, that you go through a process. It was come in and go out, and it was a funny kind of an army.
Did you have free time during the course of the day?
Of the day, yes.
Or night, or evening?
Yes, we did.
What did you do?
No, we didn't. There was no real entertainment. We just sat around and just talked, but there was no real entertainment. Nothing was really, truly organized.
Could you walk away? Could you take a walk?
No, that I couldn't, because I was part of the team. And we were not interested to just walk away. We were all full of the spirit of the time. It wasn't.
Did you socialize with the guys who were at the other monastery?
No. The other monastery, I don't remember anybody being there. But because we had to go to the top because of the antenna, we had to find the highest place for the antenna. So I didn't do that. There were the men of the they organized the tougher tasks, to build up the antenna and to bring radios were then bulky things. So to put it here and that was.
How often did you get back to Tel Aviv to see your folks?
From Videography only once I came, but from Abu Ghosh I came a few times. That depended on who was going anyway. That would give me a lift to this, and then I came back. My family was in a bit of a bad position because my dad wasn't there anymore, and he left behind a workshop with about 7 or 8 employees. And my sisters and my mother went in to organize things inside. And they didn't know much, so I came in to see what's going on and to help. And I had a brother who was only 9 when my dad died. So that was a bit of a problem. Well, he later became the chief vet of the country.
Chief vet?
Veterinarian, yeah. Today he is retired, and he lives in Rehovot. But he worked in the veterinary institute for something like 30 years, later on. But he was only 9 when my dad died. So it was also a bit of a problem. So that's...
What was it like each time you came back and then you went back to base, wherever you were, with your mom? What did your mom say to you?
She didn't say much. Well, I could see on her face that she was so worried. She had 4 children, and I was the eldest. And she was extremely worried.
As were every parent.
Every parent, yes. At one stage, I was in a camp near Akko, very near the Baha'i temple, and we used to go in there to see them, to watch them. We took time off from there. It was a British camp, actually, that we took over. The British called it St. Jean. I don't know, but it's nothing today.
So how many places were you stationed at?
Can't remember anymore.
Try, let's count.
In Trifin at one stage, at first it was Trifin, and then I volunteered in another place. When you decide to volunteer, you just walked in. There was no process really.
So you could have left from one unit. You could have said, I want to go join this other group over here. You could have.
Sometimes it worked. Yes. That's how people came to us. The two brothers from Canada. They just walked in. And
so how did you know where to go? One of those. What made you go?
I went to the place. In Tel Aviv, there was a pink house. Today there is a statue there that it's near Hilton on Ayalkon. I went in there and I stayed with a cousin, and I said, I want to join Harel. I want. And that's how I joined, without any process. And then in Harel, I learned how to use a gun, and then I went into communication. And then there I found that it was interesting, and that's.
And they would send you to all the different places.
Yes, there was the commander there, and that he. Once I went, it was more organized when I was in Harel. Before that, it wasn't. Just walked in wherever.
How would they decide where to send you?
I don't know, but I think they had one look at me and said, "This one is no hero." And I was quite kind of delicate, so they said, and that fitted me. That suited me.
So can you guess? Can you try and remember how many places you were stationed?
Only 3 or 4. That's all. It was Sarafand, St. Jean, Abu Ghosh,
That.
and Videographer. And after Videographer, I left. Actually, I left early because there were problems at home.
What did your mother say when you told her that you were going to the Pink Building in Tel Aviv to sign up with Harel?
I didn't ask her. I didn't tell her even. I just went there. That was the spirit of the time.
Were you by yourself or with girlfriends?
I was by myself with a cousin.
And your friends? What were your friends?
No.
Your friends at school? What were they?
Friends at school, they spread all over the country. About half the class went up north, Nebi Yusha, near Tzfat, and there was a big massacre there, and some of them were killed. Many of them were killed. I would say about half the class there, the boys mainly. Yeah.
When you were in Eilat, how often were you able to get back to Tel Aviv?
Only once I did.
In how much time?
It was not very much, because.
How long were you in Tel Aviv? I mean, how long were you in Eilat?
In Eilat, 3 months.
A few months.
Three
3 months.
Yes. Can we stop now?
Mm-hmm.
Can we stop
Take
now
a break?
from
Sure.
Yes, take a break.
Yes, we're going to take a break.
I'm dying to go to the toilet.
Sure.
Okay, now
You're
it's.
on?
Yes.
Yeah. What else do you want?
Let me just ask you some feelings. Your feelings.
Feelings.
Yes.
Okay.
I want you to tell me, for example, was there any time that you personally were scared?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
There was never any close. I mean, you heard guns shooting,
Guns,
right?
yes. No.
There was never felt close to you that you're like right in the middle of a battle of some sort.
Yes, I was, but I took it my stride. You know, everybody else was like me. You know, it's...
But you yourself, is your own feelings. You went to bed at night, didn't you say, you know, I got a close call today? I mean, your own personal... We all had a close call, but you...
Yeah, I don't remember feeling it. I don't remember feeling it. You know, really.
What was your saddest moment during the war?
Oh, the saddest moment. I don't know. It's the whole thing was partly sad because it was a painful experience. This whole period. Sad that the Jerusalem siege was sad. Really sad. People are really. Well, I must tell you that I think Edna told you that Rafi stole a motorbike. He was in Julis then, and he stole a motorbike, went into Rehovot, bought a few things. His dad was stuck in the siege. His mom was in Tel Aviv, and he sneaked into Jerusalem.
On which road?
No road, in between the villages, until the Burma Road arrived. And the Burma Road, that was another experience. And I was one of the first to go on the Burma Road. And
Tell me what happened.
Well, nothing. We just sat on. I have pictures also, and went on cars that went on Burma Road, and that broke the siege. Then we went to Jerusalem, and we saw things, and we, brought things there, and there was quite a conflict with the Hasidic part. They didn't like when things happened on the Shabbat, as if we could help it, and that made me angry at this particular section, and it was, although many of them were great, doing their bits in this whole conflict, but some of them were crazy. I didn't like the crazy part, when things like this happen, you don't look at the details,
So you weren't there when they built the Burma Road? You were there when they were building it, when they were chipping away?
Well, no, I came in later, a little later, but I did go on the Burma Road to Jerusalem. It's in between, and by the way, they discovered an old Roman road there, on the Burma Road. That was a discovery.
When you came to Jerusalem from the Burma Road to break the siege?
I wasn't there at first. I was much later. But people went in to break the siege. Yes,
of course. What was your happiest moment during the war?
The happiest? That the war produced a man I loved. It was, we were together in some of the actions.
I thought you said there was no socializing.
No, but we were in the same place. There was generally no socializing, because there was nothing organized. The Chizbatron was there. They came, and other groups came to entertain, and we were around, but not as it is today. Not at all.
So how did you socialize with Rafi?
We were in the same place. I mean, we were in the same unit.
You were communications, and he was
He was also at that stage at the communications. But then he joined, bits and pieces like the villages south of Jerusalem, Bet Jala and all this. And wow.
When you look back now, so you living here most of your life, you look back on Israel and what you saw from when you were born to what it is today. What strikes you as the most amazing thing?
The most amazing thing about it is I don't think there's another country that has succeeded in 60 years. Actually, no, much of it went way back, but in 60 years that it has been organized more or less, and with all the institutions that a country should have. And a lot of people say, and I agree, that this is the most successful project the world has ever known. It's still going on. That's well, it has problems, sure, but it is the most successful project. The Zionist project, most successful. And if you look at the institutions that any government has, and sometimes better than other places, look at the health program, at the so many things, that it is special. And the special thing about the kibbutzim, I lived every time 3 months in 3 kibbutzim.
As a youngster, what age?
14, 15, 16. Every summer. I loved it, and I thought the comradeship was, but not every kibbutz had this comrade. It depended on the people, who. And although the kibbutzim were 3% of the country, well, this is something special in the world that Israel excelled in, the kibbutzim.
Very good, very good. Okay.
Okay.
Very good. I thank you. Very good. The picture you have of the Burma Road, maybe we'll take a picture of that.
Yes.
Of what?
You said you had a picture of the Burma Road.
My son, and that's Rafi. Yeah. It's
And what do we have on the wall?
this is semi-abstract.
Everything here in the house is yours? I mean,
Yeah, except this one there, but everything is mine. Well, what should I say about this? You know, the conflict between the round and the square, and then this, and the conflict between the yellow and the black and the white. It's well, what else?
and that.
This is my little boy who was 5 years old there.
Mm-hmm.
I drew him, and
today he's
he's in New Mexico.
how old?
He's 50.
50. We're in New Mexico.
Taos. You know Taos?
No, but I'm going to be in Santa Fe next month.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, for a couple of days.
Oh, go on.
What about this one?
This one. This one is, she was my ozeret.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I did it to this and others. Maybe I'll bring it to enter the university. I had to show work. So this is an impression of through a lake, and just an impression. And
Which one?
I like the impressionist stuff, but
Right.
not like the impressionists say. This is acrylic, so it spreads on the canvas.
Canvas.
Yeah, and it's and this was done for an exhibition. This is the subject there was the core of the beginning. And the way it spreads into space around. You understand?
Yes.
The way it spreads in the space around, and here this is, for example, this is just a flower. You see, but I wanted to show the character of the petals. What's the character of the petals? It's lightness. It's you can see through. It's soft. I wanted to show a character of, not just a flower. So that's the idea. You see, lots of well-known artists will say that it's the idea that must be the guidance in anything. You don't paint stum. You put one color next to the other, it's already an idea. They are good as neighbors. Or conflict, depending, it's not. And that's a thing. Well, I have a whole lot. I mean, it's really
You still paint?
I have a studio in Nachlat Benjamin in Tel Aviv, and for example.
How often do you go?
As often as I can. Now this is.
Need help?
That's okay. Now this is an impression, and that's the upside down. This is just an impression of African violets, sigaliot. Just an impression, the colors. The fact that it is flowers doesn't matter. I just put an accent on the colors. The colors and the inside. You see you see the way the colors, because they are transparent, the petals. You see the blue through the purple. You see the blue through. When I do a thing like this, I go into
As artists do.
For not everybody, but I do, and I just spread the color and bring it in, and try and the fact that I choose these colors because these are the sigaliot, these are the African violets. But the way colors go because of the transparency, the way colors go one into the other. That's what I wanted to show.
Do you have any pictures of you that you know where they are of you during the war? Any pictures of you of your youth that we can bring out now?
Oh yeah, of course I can. If you go into Beta Palmach, and you go to the room behind, it's a room of photographs. You go Chativat Har'el, Gdud HaChamishi, I'm on the cover.
At the age of 18?
Yeah, 19 then. Yeah, and inside also.
Who else is on the cover?
Another girl, it's in Videographer. Another girl who was killed later, but in the little tent, horrible little tent, which was our headquarters communication, and the big instrument, the radio, with a Russian on it. That's in this building. Yeah, I think I find it. This is on Burma Road.
Where are you?
Not me.
Can't see, okay.
Rafi is there. That's Rafi. And that's around the Burma Road, the rocks, the Jerusalem rocks and all this. And here, no, here, Eilat.
Are you there? Are you in that picture?
Yes, I'm
Where?
sitting here. This is me.
Oh my.
Who took this picture?
That picture Rafi took.
How many pictures, how many books like this do you have from that period?
Nothing. It's just
It's just one book?
Just one book, yes. Not even one. It's
This
most
is the
of it.
original.
And
Yeah.
this is in Beta Palmach, actually, also. This is the monastery on top in Abu Ghosh,
Ooh.
with the Madonna
Mm-hmm.
there. And you know something? They stuck antenna on the Madonna here. And they said that the only Madonna in the world with an antenna on the halo. And this is the view you get from this is the monastery there on top. Yeah, yeah. This is also in Betapot. Rafi is there. This is Rafi, and this is in Jerusalem in the siege. You know, they put sacks of sandbags on this. This is Manu, he's one of the generals later. He's Manu, what I don't remember the name. He often appears on television. He was with us, you know. It's, and I don't know. Oh yeah, wait a minute, that's Burma Road, that's near Wadi Girafi. Yeah, it's I took things headquarters of the station, of the communications station.
Where?
Wadi Girafi.
Who are you?
It's not me,
Ah.
I took it.
Ah.
And this is Carmela, she was killed later. And that's inside here. Gosh, I don't.
Who's
No, that's another girl. No, that's. Oh, that's me. Also, that's me. That's me. That's where I have. This is not blue jeans. That's winter. That's blue trousers. That was, and this jacket came from America. I'm a Tony from America.
How'd you get it?
They dished it out. It's just, what do you want? Take it. And that's Rafi's sister there. But here, that's his family. That's me in Wadi Girafi, near the tent. You know, that's the blue shorts. And that's the antenna that we were looking for a high place. And that's me brushing teeth. And that's the tent. That's Nebuch headquarters. And this is inside this tent. And this is the radio that I was talking about. Huge radio. And you can't see it. It's a bad picture, but it's
Is that
Russian. That's me with the back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's Ran Aldema. He's today a headmaster of a school. He give a time. That's me there and here. This picture is on the cover at Beta Palmach. And this is Carmela, she was killed. And that's me standing here That's our tours. We're touring around, you know, around there. En Radian. Today there's a kibbutz there. I can't remember the name. Yeah, here it is also this jeep that's inside Egypt. We just went in. That's
From Eilat.
that's from east of Eilat. Yes, that's also that's Ras Al Nakib. That's also inside Egypt. This is a spring, water. Inside Egypt. We just did brothers, the two Canadian brothers.
Which two?
This and this. The two Canadian brothers. It's right in the middle of the desert. It's, whoops.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's me sitting at this radio, big radio. And that's here's another picture with this is a tent for water containers, and we called it Whitman. Whitman was a big shop in Tel Aviv for ice cream, for cold drinks, and we called it Whitman.
Because it's just a little tent to keep it cool.
Yeah, and this is Carmela, poor thing, and this is Ran. Ran is a headmaster, and that's another Carmela. And that's our group. This group is, there's Rafi, Lior, her name is, from Ramat Rachel. Ramat Rachel, you can see until today they're shooting. At one stage they had to abandon it. And this is the group that joined us after abandoning Ramat Rachel. Yeah. That's some piece of history.
Good yoke.
And that's me. That's the radio. That's the time when we were still talking over the radio. And
How do you know?
I'm talking here.
Oh, there's a mic.
A mic, yes.
I see.
Yes.
There's also Morse code.
Yes, we were exchanging. But here we were talking, and eventually we moved to Morse code. And here we listened to the Arabs used to come into our wavelength and call us bitches and shut up bitch, you know, this kind of thing. And this is also this is after a sandstorm. The whole thing came out. It was. That's me. And that's Rafi standing there. And that's again the Burma word.
That's you?
Yeah, it's all Valuj Rafi there.
And the month is?
That's April 49. It's after Eilat. Eilat was the last one to be taken. That's in Sdom. We used to go into Sdom. And that's inside Egypt. We used to do sort of incursions into Egypt to see if we can find infiltrators. That's nothing.